Chapter 3. Gerry with the G. Peter woke to the usual Saturday morning noise of youngsters kicking a ball around. Bleeding idiots. He turned on the electric kettle and then switched on his television. A giant spark shot out of the wall. "Jeez!" he screamed. Television would not come on. He phoned the maintenance man and explained what happened. He went to Gerry's voicemail as usual. Turnaround time was slow in government-funded housing. He walked across the Spar and bought a newspaper and a coffee. He returned to the apartment and sat on the couch. The front page of the paper showed the headline: "Terrorist plot failed in London at benefit concert. Mystery Avenger at large." The photo showed the dead body of a man lying on the lawn of Hyde Park. Peter looked closely as he pulled up a chair with his foot and sat down. Just before 11 p.m, the newspaper said, last night, as a large crowd had formed at Hyde Park during an annual benefit concert, a 28-year-old man attempted to detonate a suicide vest while standing in the middle of the crowd. Jody Clark, who was standing next to the man at the time, said that she saw him lifting up his hand and about to press his thumb down. "I thought he was doing one of those cigarette lighter things they do at concerts," Miss Clark stated. "But then he screamed out Allahu Akbar and his head blew up." "Fucking hell, Jackie," Peter said out loud. He picked up his phone and dialed her. "How will you leave a message?" He hung up, put his shoes back on, grabbed some change and ran down to the bus stop. The bus was on time. To Peter's surprise, it was the same bus driver from the night before. "Twice in a row," Peter said. "Go ahead, mate," the driver said, not intending to take Peter's money. "I'll apply the senior pass." The driver noticed Peter's pale complexion. "Just trying to do you a favour, mate. Didn't mean to insult you." "Oh, no, that's great," Peter said as he was coming back to himself. "Senior discount, I don't know whether to say thank you or fuck off." "You're not supposed to make the bus driver laugh in case he crashes," said the young man behind the wheel. Peter went to the second floor of the bus and looked out across the Dodder. To his left, the red cast-iron exoskeleton of the Gasworks apartments caught his eye. He remembered the original structure as a child before they were turned into an apartment complex. He continued to read the newspaper. People standing in front of the man were treated for shock as blood and parts of skull and brain matter covered them. Scotland Yard stated that the man was wearing an active suicide vest and was holding the detonator when he suddenly fell to the ground. The man was apparently hit by a sniper just before he could detonate his vest. No suspect has been found. The sniper was most likely in the trees nearby but managed to escape. "Leave it to the Mirror to give all the gory details," said Peter. The bus dropped him off outside Easton's. He walked in and approached the first person at a desk. "Hi, is Jackie Casey here today?" "Yeah, but she's on her break." "Do you know where she went on break?" "Who's asking?" "I'm her dad." "Well, she said she was going to walk around the ILAC Centre." "Did she say exactly where?" "No." "Thanks, love." Peter walked into the ILAC Centre, knowing it may be unlikely to bump into her. She tended not to answer her phone when on the job, so he tried again, hoping she'd answer on her break. No answer. After 10 minutes of walking through, he found her in a cafe. Hey, what's going on?" "You know what's going on. Where were you last night?" "With you." "Don't be a smartass, Jackie. What did you do after I dropped you off around 11:20 p.m? Am I on trial now? Did you take out that guy in Hyde Park last night? Would you keep your fucking voice down, Dad? Do you want the whole world to know?" "Oh, sorry." He looked around to see if anyone was looking at them. He sat down beside her and leaned in. "Well, technically, no." "I fucking knew it. That girl, Agent 17. Agent 7, Dad," Jackie corrected him. Whatever. You had her do it." "You're quick. But how?" "Well, when you first saw her on screen last night, she was in a cafe near Hyde Park. Because of the size of the event, we had her in that area. Police were all over the place, but they could not have acted quick enough. Besides, they don't have the facial recognition scanning software that she has. So you were working through Agent 7 last night while you were talking to Thompson and me." "Correct." "How did you do that?" "Practice," said Jackie. "I thought you always told me that multitasking was a myth." "It is, but it gets easier with training. Fortunately, I was home from the pub before I had to fire the shot." "So let me get this straight. said Peter. Well, we're talking on the way home on the Strand. You're moving Agent 7 in for the kill. From what the newspaper said, you had her climbing the tree while you were talking to me. Kind of, said Jackie. Dad, I'd love to get into it more, but my wages come from selling books, not taking out terrorists. Let's continue talking later. Oh, sure, yeah. Miss Undercover Woman. By the way, Thompson wants to finish his conversation with you. When are you off? Jackie said. Monday I don't work. I'll get back to you. Jackie grabbed her bag and he walked her back to Eason's. Sunday morning found Peter in the back of St. Patrick's Church. He hadn't gone there in a while since the accident, but it seemed like a good idea when he woke up. Did you have something to do with all of this, Shell? You probably did, knowing you. Michelle never missed the Sunday Mass, and Peter would always be with her, even though it wasn't his thing. He sat in their usual place, but an older man had taken her empty spot. The offering basket came around. Peter reached in his hand into his jacket pocket looking for change, only to find the Nurofen bottle that he had placed there the Friday night before. He removed the bottle and placed it in the offering plate. The older man beside him looked at him with disgust. In case some poor folks get headaches, whispered Peter to the old man as he got up, moved to the end of the seat, genuflected, and left the church. He took his bike over to work on Bagot Street as he was on a later shift. Things had changed in Dublin over the years. It wasn't long ago when a few places were open on Sunday, but he needed the money. He approached work differently today. As he was stacking the fruit and veg, he was able to think through a lot of what had come at him the previous few days. Childhood images flashed in his mind. Yul Brynner's melting face in Westworld. A female intruder entering Jamie Summers' apartment and being met with a punch to the face that revealed her true cyborg identity. He even recalled his Steve Austin doll, how he would look through the back of his head to get a view into the world of bionic vision. Even in childhood, he thought this technology to be a century or more away, but here it was, less than 40 years later, and he was in the middle of a world that only existed in fantasy. His phone vibrated. He was supposed to leave it in the back during work hours, but he never did. It was from Jackie. You said you were off Monday, right? So am I, since I worked yesterday. Thompson asked if you could meet him and I at the police station at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Peter headed to the toilet so he could respond. Sure, I'll be there. Wide open all day. Peter came home to a note on the kitchen table from Gerry, the maintenance man. Fix the power and check the telly in case you blew it up. All's well, Gerry. Oh, said Peter. Gerry with a G, he said to himself. I've been spelling it wrong all these years. He looked again at the note and it seemed like a G was quite large. Cheeky bollocks, probably trying to send me a hint. Peter decided not to turn on the television even though it was his habit. Probably wouldn't have gone to Mass had he fixed it yesterday. He went to bed. The alarm went off at 7:30. He turned on the electric kettle and showered while the water was boiling. He got dressed and drank his tea and turned on the television, switching to Sky News. They had now identified the terrorist who had been killed on Friday night. The man was identified as a first cousin to Bataclan terrorist Fawad Mohammed Agad. Big fucking surprise, another fucking Muslim terrorist, said Peter. Would this shit ever stop? The newscaster then showed another image taken apparently from CCTV. Peter's heart was in his throat, assuming that Jackie's image would be shown on television. Police do not know the identification of this woman, but she is a person of interest, as witnesses said they saw her climbing down from a tree in the park soon after the terrorist died. Scotland Yard is asking if anyone get a fucking prize, give her a fucking prize. That's what you should be saying, but you won't, shouted Peter at the TV, finishing the news reporter's sentence. He turned off the television and walked to Irishtown police station. Upon arriving at the station, guarded Tom was at the desk, the officer who Peter had an altercation with. Can I help you, sir? Said the guard, emphasising sir because he didn't mean it, Peter thought. I'm looking for Major Thompson. It's Colonel Thompson, sir. Is he expecting you? He said with a heavy Cork accent. Yeah. The guard picked up the phone. You know, a nice thing about reading out loud is this police officer, if you were paying attention to chapter 1, I said had a West of Ireland accent, but now I put him in Cork. So, 2 problems I found. Thank you for listening. Sometimes reading out loud helps. Yeah, the guard picked up the phone. A gentleman is here to see you. Upon saying gentleman, the guard's eyebrows lifted. He'll be here shortly if you'd like to wait over there. Thanks, said Peter, as he walked away and then turned back. So? Yes, said the Garda. So they didn't have any jobs for you in Ballymearse? You had to come all the way to Dublin to get a job? The Garda started to stand up, but fortunately for Peter, Thompson arrived on the scene. Mr. Casey, good morning. They shook hands and went to the command centre downstairs. The lift doors opened to show Jackie sitting there. Morning, love, said Peter. Hey, Dad. Thank you for being here, Mr. Casey. I appreciate this as your day off, and I'll try not to make this any longer than it needs to be. Take your time, Colonel. I'm in no rush, and take all the time you need to explain this madness that has entered my life all of a sudden. Very good, said the Colonel, while smiling. Can I offer you tea or coffee? I'm great, thanks. Thompson proceeded to show a video. It was a video image of a large crowd with the stage in the background. There was a lot of data on the screen as the video was playing. People's faces were being suddenly encased in a circle with a blurb of data that came and went. It looks like the view from inside the helmet of RoboCop or Iron Man, said Peter. He could tell that Thompson was unaware of the references. This is a recording of what Agent 7 was seeing on Friday night. The video then started to move towards a tree, and Peter could tell the agent was now starting to climb it. The video now moved back to the crowd as Agent 7 started to scan the crowd. The faces in the crowd were being scanned at such a high rate that it was impossible to read the data on each person. At one point, the video slowed down in scanning and started to hover over 3 individual men in the crowd, not standing anywhere near each other. Thompson turned up the audio. I have 3 likely suspects, said a voice with a British accent. Give me each one's detailed history, said a voice that was clearly Jackie's. You're listening to Agent 7 and Jackie's conversation from Friday night, but just minutes before the terrorist was shot, said Thompson. You'll notice that Agent 7 can get good history on 2 of the 3 faces, but not on the 3rd. She was having difficulty getting a good view of the 3rd man's face. The 3rd man is now dead. I noticed all 3 were Arab names, said Peter. Yes, said Thompson. So your software is racial profiling. Isn't that illegal? Thompson raised his eyebrows. Well, said Peter, after a few seconds, I suppose it's appropriate to be running illegal, unethical software on an illegal, unethical cyborg. Mr. Casey, our algorithms are very complex and do not just look at the colour of skin or religions. It also looks for suspicious behaviours. Agent 7 has many talents. You will notice that not only is she equipped with night vision, but also has a thermal scan. His body temperature was higher than other males in the crowd. This was probably the result of him wearing a vest, but could also be attributed to him sweating from the realization he's about to die. Look at the numbers on his heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing. Notice how he keeps looking around him. He doesn't seem to hold much interest in the show he paid to see. The eyes of Agent 7 went down, and Peter could see her start to assemble something. Within a few minutes, she was looking through a sniper scope at the unidentified man. He turned, and the sniper got a good look at him. Suddenly, a bubble appeared on screen with data. First cousin of Bataclan terrorist, said Agent 7. Keep the scope right on him. Ignore the other 2, said Jackie. Suddenly, the man started to scream, and there was a commotion from the people immediately around him. What's he screaming about, said Jackie. As soon as she asked the question, the subtitle of what he said appeared on screen. Allahu Akbar. A space started to form around him, and the crowd moved away from him. His hand rose in the air, and suddenly half of his head exploded outward. He fell to the ground, and screams followed. Agent 7 then slowly disassembled her weapon, and Peter could see moving branches as she descended the tree and exited the park. What questions do you have for me, Mr. Thompson? Holy fucking shite, man. As you can see, there is a partnership between the 2, but Jackie needs to give the order to execute. She doesn't have to do that verbally. She just needs to think it into the agent. It's helpful to talk sometimes, said Jackie. We need the agent to churn the algorithms that give us the likelihood of a suspect. No human could do that. In this case, she offered me some top options and then I had to make the decision. Well, that's a lot on your shoulder, said Peter. You sure you want to carry that? It's really not a great deal to carry, interrupted Thompson. The software is doing most of the heavy lifting. The algorithms are so complex that by the time they offer up final analysis, it is, and many times, as they say in America, a no-brainer on what to do next. Good one. No-brainer, said Peter, pointing to the screen. Do you get it, Jackie? Oh, said Thompson. It wasn't meant as a pun, Mr. Casey. In this case, continued Thompson, Suspect 1 and 2 were suspects based on the fact that they were Muslim, Middle Eastern, had travelled to the concert on their own and were wearing heavy clothing that was unnecessary for an evening as warm as it was. In the end, they were not suspected. Number 3 was our target. But you could have taken out suspects 1 and 2, said Peter. No, Dad, we would not have pulled the trigger unless they moved first. Or we could physically see a suicide vest or weapon or scream out what this bloke screamed. About this algorithm, said Peter. Peter turned to Thompson. What about that white fucker in Sweden some years back who killed all those students on the camp? Or Tim McFucking-Vey. They weren't Muslims. Or that Las Vegas cunt. That Las Vegas man shooting into the crowd from the hotel window. Or all those fucked up white teenagers across America shooting their schoolmates. Your algorithm would miss them, from what you're telling me. I believe you speak of the 2011 Norway attacks, said Thompson, subtle enough not to reveal Peter's Scandinavian ignorance. And yes, you're correct, our algorithms would miss them. If they really worked like that, our algorithms are not racist. They are pulling all kinds of data. Are they pulling race and religion into the scenarios? They'd be foolish not to. How many Buddhist or Mormon terrorist groups are you aware of? Asked Thompson. Well, I don't know. I will tell you what the algorithms do not consider. They do not consider political correctness. In other words, the algorithms are not concerned with public opinion or hurting people's feelings. They are giving us data based on patterns we see in European terrorist activities, and currently the majority of terrorists in Europe just happen to be of Middle Eastern origin and Muslim. The algorithms tell us what the politicians are too afraid to tell us. But at the end of the day, it is a human who makes the decisions. Peter sat there for a few moments. Thompson pulled up his chair and sat in front of Peter. Mr. Casey, had this operation been in place some years back, imagine the lives that could have been saved. What if Agent 7 had been in Manchester? What if she had been in Madrid, Paris? The list goes on. Think about it, Mr. Casey. You're being given a chance to turn the tide on terrorism in Europe. Casey looked at Thompson with a slight look of confusion. What do you mean? I'm being given a chance. Are you offering me a job? We would like to test your IQ, EQ, reflexes, and so on. You want me to be part of all this? Are you out of your mind? I'm about 50, and look at the state of me. Matters little your age or physical health, Mr. Casey, although if we invest in you, we'd like you to be around for a while. So taking care of your health would be beneficial, not just to you, but to the ECPU as well. Listen, Colonel, I always said that Jackie had her mother's brains, not mine. There is only one way to find out, Mr. Casey. Would you be willing to go through a testing process? We could do it right here. Let me think about it, said Peter. Is there any harm in taking the test? Taking it won't commit you to anything, but will give you and us knowledge. If you fail the test, there is no decision to be made. You just go on with your life. If you pass the test, then you are in a place to make a decision. A decision, I might add, that could save many lives, Mr. Casey. As they say in America, Colonel, you drive a hard bargain. We can test you right now for you're free. What the hell, I'm doing nothing else. Peter was taken into the back room and given a series of tests that lasted 2 hours. By lunchtime, the results were in. Mr. Casey, said Thompson. I'm afraid, he paused. I knew it, see, her brains were not from me. Well, I'm sure your wife was very intelligent, but I'm afraid we've made our decision, and the decision now lies in your hands. You're saying that I passed and now I need to make a decision whether to join? Precisely, sir. Wow, how smart am I? You shouldn't be concerned with that. Please remember that it is not just IQ but other elements we are looking for. So you're not going to tell me? It's only necessary that you know we are extending an offer to you. No salary, of course. We are appealing to your civic duty. Peter looked at Jackie. Well, if you're already doing it, might as well keep it in the family. May I offer to buy you lunch, said Thompson. Sure, I'm game, Jackie nodded. You choose, Mr. Casey. Barry's it is, said Peter. Sounds great, said Thompson. Dad, can you pick a nicer place? What's wrong with Barry's? Peter knew that Barry's would not have been Colonel's choice, but it was Peter's choice. The Garda was waiting outside for them in an unmarked car. Do you know where Barry's is on Montague Street? I don't, but if you give me the address, I'll get us there right away. Sure, I don't know the address. I just know how to get there. I'll direct you. 6 Montague Street, said Jackie, looking up from her device. You can't trust those things, said Peter. You'll be more involved in the conversation, Dan, if you let technology help us. They were dropped off on Camden Street and walked a short distance to the cafe. All right, Peter, said the man at the doors. 3 of yous? Yeah, Barry. Peter purposely picked the table at the back towards the kitchen, away from the main area, as he knew he would have more questions on what he had just signed up for. Pot of tea, love, said Peter to the young waitress. So the cyborgs, the agents, how do you make them? They are made in a few small facilities around Europe. We have a team of scientists working there currently. We only have 12 agents in action across Europe, 2 in London, 2 in Paris, 1 in Brussels, 1 in Madrid, and the rest scattered throughout European cities. You can't fight much of a war on terrorism with 12 agents, Colonel. We're fully aware of that, Mr. Casey, but this is only iteration 5. This is a long chapter. Almost done. A few more minutes. 20-minute chapter off the project. The young waitress came back with the tea and took their lunch order. What do you mean by iteration? Peter explained. We started at small increments, learned as we went. Putting out a large batch of agents would not only be wasteful but dangerous, so iteration 1 had us starting with 1 agent, and when we felt we had success, we continued with iteration 2. We also needed to demonstrate to the sponsor that the agents were working, so each iteration brought us an extra funding to continue. There was strict acceptance criterion we needed to adhere to. What do you mean? Said Peter. Well, the agents cannot kill without the order from their controller. This was critical for their success. We cannot have rogue agents on the loose with a license to kill, if you will. The controllers must also be well vetted. So iteration 1 was to test the single agent with a single controller. Some years ago, a gentleman based out of Paris was the controller of Agent 1. So when did Jackie come along? Just before iteration 5, the iteration we are currently in. But I digress, Mr. Casey. You asked about how we were able to make the agents so fast. If you don't mind, I will start at the beginning. Please, I've got all afternoon, said Peter. Barry arrived with the food. All right, Peter, how's Tesco treating you? All right, yourself, Barry? All right, Jackie, you're looking well. Thanks, Barry. Barry nodded to Thompson and appeared like he would not leave them in peace until he knew who he was. Fuck's sake, Barry, will you just leave the food and go? Thought Peter to himself. Barry, this is my uncle from London, Thomas. Nice to meet you, Thomas, said Barry. Well, enjoy the food. Always do, Barry, always do. Thompson took a sip of his tea and continued. The initial funding was to create a very rudimentary agent, Agent 1. He didn't need to look human. He only needed skeletal systems, joints, movement bands, visual system. He also needed to have the central computer that would take instructions from the controller. So the chip and the controller was also required as part of the initial iteration. Agent 1 needed to be able to kill someone either by hand or with a weapon, but under the strict order of the controller. This was the minimal viable product we needed to prove the sponsors that we could at least make and control the agent who could attack. The demonstration period was long, as our sponsor took many weeks to confirm that our code could not allow the agent to go rogue. However, it produced the funding we needed to continue. Iteration 2 was where we added the software that runs algorithms on suspects and presents them to the controller for a go, no-go decision on engagement or termination. Since this type of software is already in place around Europe as it extracts data picked from much of the closed-circuit television networks, we only needed to get access to the code and adjust it for our agent. Iteration 3 is where we added the bulk of the agent's slender frame and added synthetic human skin. Iteration 4 is where we added human-like eyes, lips, teeth, tongue, nails to give the full effect of a human. The goal of this iteration was that the sponsors and the general public, for that matter, not descend into the uncanny valley. The what? Peter asked. Google it later, Dad. They need to be indistinguishable from humans. This final iteration we are currently in was enough to get sponsorship for more agents. Iteration 5 required improved fluidity of movements and speech so that the agents would not stand out in their movements. We also needed improved movements, not just for aesthetics, but for the ability to scale any object that a human could scale, and then some. The synthetic skin has a powerful grip which makes it surpass humans in this area. This, mixed with their frame and powerful drive shafts, makes them much stronger than an average human being. So, what is iteration 6? Said Peter. There will not be an iteration 6. We have some minor adjustments and so on, but we are mostly done with iterations. It is now time to mass produce. I have more questions. About how many agents are made? Yeah, that's the question. You will have a chance to go on one of the you will have a chance to go to one of the facilities where they are being made, and we can answer more questions then. So, what are the next steps? Asked Peter. You will need to travel to Paris to install the communications chip in your brain. It is not a major operation, but you will need time off work for travel. We will create a doctor's note for your employer and provide you with good explanation for why you're wearing a bandage on your head. So, said Peter, turning to Jackie, that operation you had some time ago on your head was not for a benign mole, was it? Jackie shook her head and smiled. While in Paris, Thomas continued, you will receive a tour of a facility. We do not have one facility where the agents are made, but many scattered around. Having a large factory would bring attention to us. You will meet your clone on that same trip, where we will confirm that the chip is connecting. Once back in Dublin, you will come here after work on weekends for training. While you are in the sub-level of Irishtown Police Station, you will be controlling your agent in Paris. This will be a period of testing before you go to production. Production? Go live. By go live, you mean take out a few Muslims? We mean curb terrorism in Europe, Thompson corrected him. All right, let's do it, said Peter. So, we have an agreement, said Thompson. I'm agreeing to keep my mouth shut about all this, doing my best work with my agent when I'm not working or when I am working. Trying to figure out how to multitask, agreeing not to make a penny off of you, agreeing to take out a few fuckers who mean to kill people. Thompson nodded his head. Yeah, we have an agreement. They got up. Thompson paid the bill and they exited. That's the end of chapter 3. That was a long chapter. Not all chapters are that long, like the next chapter is only a few pages long. Thanks for listening this far.